So, ladies and gentlemen, let me get started before you see me. That's not the important part. The presentation is the important part today. I want to welcome you. My name is Frank Peterzak, one of the auctioneers and associate brokers with Absolute Auction and Realty and the NYS Auctions team. Welcome you to tonight's Otsego County Real Property Tax Foreclosure Auction Seminar. And obviously, we need to do this tonight by webinar format since we can't congregate and be in person. But we decided to back this up a little bit further than we normally do before the auction so that it gives you plenty of opportunity to understand the process, do your homework, get prepared for the auction, and be what we call a happy bidder. One of the suggestions that we have for you is that you may want to grab your cell phone and be ready to use your cell phone so that you can take pictures of anything that we're showing you tonight. So some of you are comfortable doing a screen share or a screen grab. That's fine. But if you want to just take a picture with your cell phone on some of the slides, might be something good for you to be able to refer to later on. So that's just a good suggestion for you. So here's contact information for us. Jennifer Gableman is our company president, principal broker, and AAR Auctions is our parent website. My name is Frank. Auctioneer, associate broker. I'm on the NYS Auctions team conducting property tax foreclosure auction for our company. And you could reach us on a variety of ways, obviously by reaching us in the office, but we do have pretty good presence on social media. If you're interested in looking at Twitter or Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube, we use all those different types of social media to promote not only our company, but things that we're doing out in the field. There are plenty of photographs if you want to go and take a look at some of the things we see along the way. For example, yesterday I was up in the very northern part of Lewis County, saw some phenomenal trees and leaves and that kind of stuff. And those videos are on Instagram and Pinterest at the moment. So if you want to take a look, that'd be a good place to go and do that. If you have a question, I'll ask you to put it into the chat box. We've been conducting these auctions now for about 20 years. So, we get to practice these webinars quite a bit. We already anticipate many of the questions that you have in the next 45, 50 minutes. I'm sure we're going to cover all of the topics that you came here tonight to learn about. But if you have something that's gnawing at you and you can't wait, you want to put it into the text box. We have Jen from our office working the backside today, and she'll work with you being able to answer some questions. But I would just urge you to just kind of hang out, relax for the next 40, 50 minutes and listen to the presentation in its entirety. We're planning from 7 to 8 o'clock. However, I'm happy to stay here as long as needed to answer some general questions. With that said, I do want to tell you that I am not an attorney. Not a licensed attorney, so we are not planning on teaching you the law. We are going to try and explain some of the steps behind the foreclosure process that brings these properties to public auction, and that's the intent. There are a couple of times where I'm going to ask you to go seek a legal opinion through paid counsel, and if you have questions that are really of legal nature, if you will, that we can't feel comfortable answering in general, we're going to send you to go and get some further details from an attorney. Keep in mind that this auction for Otsego County this year is an online-only auction, so it will occur entirely online, and that's going to be officially Thursday, October 15th at 10 a.m. That's when the bidding will actually be part of the auction. And when the bidding finishes on each lot, Thursday, October 15th is when the auction will end. We're actually going to have the bidding applet open Monday, October 12th, beginning at 10 a.m. for those of you that want to begin bidding. Some people like to begin bidding early. And there's some strategies behind that. We're going to talk a bit about bidding strategy later in the presentation. But we are going to give you a couple of days in advance to start bidding if you'd like to do that. In order to bid on Monday, Tuesday, and then of course at the auction itself on Thursday, you need to be what we call an approved bidder. The approved bidder, we're going to cover this in detail, but the approved bidder means that you've registered for our website and you've also registered for the auction. So you need to be fully ready to bid on our bidding platform, and then you're going to have to finish out the bidder's packet, which has terms and conditions and other forms, and we're going to talk about these in more detail. But once you complete all of those things, you will get an email from us that lets you know that you're fully ready to go. And you'll get an email with a variety of links that'll help you get more information, and you'll be ready to go at the auction. So if you want to register early, you're more than welcome to do so, and you'll be ready to go. This auction features a variety of property. We do have a good amount of homes in this auction. This is one of the properties I visited as part of our auction team that went out and did signs and photos a couple of weeks back. We're going to have additional photos for you to look at some of these properties as the next week or so comes on. We're going to go into the interior of some of these improved unoccupied properties, and we'll get some additional photos and possibly some decent video for you of the interiors of these properties. So you'll be able to look at that. We're going to do that in advance of the auction. So figure by the weekend before the auction, we should have some more visuals for you to check out. And we're going to look at this row building rather, in Cooperstown, and the multifamilies. And we're going to take a bunch of pictures and have that available to you. There's just a great older style home here in need of a bit of a checkbook and some pledge and Windex, but there's a little bit of everything for everybody. We also have, typical Cape style homes too, if that's suited more for what you like to do. And there's a bunch of vacant land that is around the county. So we have a good variety of property, very little commercial. We don't often see commercial in property tax foreclosure. There's a little bit here, but there's multifamily, single family, and of course, vacant land. So again, the auction is officially Thursday, October 15th. Bidding will open on Monday, October 12th. And we're urging that you begin doing your homework in advance of the auction so that you're ready to bid at the auction and become a happy buyer. I think while Jess is working in the background, I'm not able to advance this slide on my end. Let me try it again. There we go. So the first thing we want to cover with you is how the properties actually get into the auction. Why are they here? This is a real property tax foreclosure auction. And what governs this under the real property tax law in the state of New York is a subsection called Article 11. And what I want to do with you tonight is give you a basic overview of that law, talk about some of the procedures and deadlines, and then we're going to get involved in a public auction. And we'll actually give you a sample public auction at the end so that you can see how that works. Well, many people ask, why do I have to pay taxes? It's because it's the law. Property tax is what funds so many of our municipal services that we enjoy, like paved roads and lights on the road and all types of different services, snow plowing, and any number of things. They're primarily funded through real property tax on the local level. And New York State has created a law for municipalities. Typically it's a county, but municipalities, in order to foreclose on real property that has not been paid under Article 11. In other words, somebody has not paid the real property taxes, and therefore this property is going to become available at public auction. I see the background here. They're trying to find my video, but I'm really not that handsome, so maybe don't worry about it. We'll just run with the audio. There's a couple of ways for you to look at Article 11. First of all, you can Google Article 11 if that makes you happy, and then get yourself over to the New York State Senate website. Let me just advance to where we were. You know you're at the right site if you see the New York State Senate site, and it talks about Article 11. It's, I think, 30 odd pages or so. You could download it, read it at your leisure, and then fully understand, what all the actual steps and details are. And I know some of you are going to do that. People have used that link and gone ahead and educated themselves more about the law. This presentation is not going to be that detailed. We want to actually spend time just helping you understand what the law is about and how it works. And we want to give you some detail. So Article 11 says that if you don't pay your taxes for 2 years, minimum of 2 years, that the municipality, the county typically, can foreclose. 3 years if the property is deemed an agricultural property. And there's what we call officially agricultural property. So everything else, vacant land, single, multifamily homes, commercial, industrial, recreational, all these different types of properties, 2-year delinquency, 3 years for extending to agricultural property. Now, this is the minimum time period that the county has to wait before they can foreclose. And I say county because typically that's who we are doing work for across New York State. We work for 16 different municipalities. Most of them are counties. There are some towns that individually do the foreclosure action. And you'll see that primarily down in Westchester County. We also do some small cities that do their own foreclosure action. And if they're using Article 11, you're going to know that they're following these steps. We're going to talk a little bit about tax bills, notices, the public notice that how you become aware that you are delinquent, number one, or how you as a buyer knows that property is coming up for auction. Talk a little bit about title search and who are interested parties, 90-day notice, and then the final judgment. So everybody that owns property here in New York State gets a tax bill. Whether you want it to come or not, they're going to mail you a tax bill every year. And you'll get the real property tax bill. You may get a village tax bill if it's in a village. And you're going to get a school tax bill. Those tax bills come automatically in the mail. We're focusing right now on real property taxes. There have been plenty of people who have tried to say, I didn't get the notice in the mail. I had no idea. Sounds good until you follow the litigation that people have brought to try and use that as defense. And I can tell you that no one has won any of those court cases saying that the tax bill doesn't come in the mail. In fact, the tax court, the courts that have decided these issues have said, as long as you're a taxpayer, you owe taxes every year. So if the bill doesn't show up, you have the responsibility as the taxpayer to go and ask for a bill or just go and make payment. So there's no excuse. You notice at the bottom of this tax bill, lower left, there is some time to pay beyond the actual due date. There's going to be penalties, there'll be interest. So on the county side, as soon as you begin being late, there's already costing you more money. So again, this has been litigated every which possible way, and you just don't win those cases. As that property is heading into the 1 and 2 year period of delinquency, the county knows that they're going to follow Article 11, and Article 11 tells them that some of the steps that you must follow is public notice. So you need to publicize the lists of delinquent tax properties and delinquent taxpayers in one of two of what we call your official county-wide newspapers. And you can find out what these are by either Googling or calling your county clerk's office and asking what the official newspaper is. But typically it's the widest circulation paper, and they're required to post public notice. The theory being that if you didn't get the bill in the mail, you're reading the newspaper and you see it there, or a neighbor may see it there and let you know, hey, your name's on the list. So when you take a little closer look at the public notice, you're going to want to look for a couple of things as an investor or a buyer at the auction. You're going to want to look to see somewhere in the legal notice that it mentions Article 11. I've highlighted that for you at 11 o'clock on this slide. Article 11 of the Real Property Tax Law. So you know that everything in this list has gone through the steps that you're learning about tonight. On the right side, these lists sometimes are a little odd or difficult to read because it just has a series of numbers and some names. We'll try and explain a little bit of this later on to you, but that series of numbers on the left identifies the county, the township, and then the actual tax parcel itself. When we talk about tax parcels or properties, they're identified by a specific section, block, and lot number. So those hyphenated numbers there in the middle column, those are the actual properties that are in the auction. On the right, these are the delinquent owners of record. So if you were to look up the deed on these properties or look in the public record, these are the people who have legal title to this property. Now, title search. The counties, again, following Article 11, must conduct a title search for what we call interested parties. That's done in the county's clerk's office. Some counties do their own searches. They have staff to do that. Some counties outsource. The law allows them to do whatever is expedient for them. When you're doing a search, and we're going to encourage that you also double check the county work by doing a search, a title search yourself, you have to consider that the only lien that is valid is those liens that are recorded in the county clerk's office. Everything else is hearsay. Everything else is strictly talking. So only recorded liens are valid. How do you do that? You want to look up liens by the last name, first name of the delinquent owner or owners. And there are lien and judgment books that you could look at. Or if you're going to do your title search online, that's how you're going to do that. Now be careful with some of the names. Some people use a middle initial. Some people have liens filed against them, even though it's them. The names are not 100% exactly always the same. So you're going to have to really conduct a diligent deep dive into looking at any recorded liens. You want to make a list. Make a list of those liens and judgments that you find, and then you're going to make a list to verify notification with the treasurer's office. Article 11 specifies that the treasurer's office or the chamberlain, if you will, or the finance commissioner, these are all the same names for the same person, the person who's in charge of finances or accounting for the county. They're the ones that are going to have the full record of who is notified. You're going to want to make sure that you check also for IRS liens. The Internal Revenue Service also has liens occasionally on some property. They're typically for non-payment of income tax. And we're going to cover more on the IRS lien later. There's some good news when the IRS has been notified. So once this process of the county determining who are the interested parties, these are people who have a recorded lien against the property, they must be notified. And they're going to be notified by the county, typically through letter. And they're going to be given a period of time to step forward and protect their lien. That's part of what we call a 90-day notice. They're given a final period of time to step up to the plate. So let me just give you an example of a lien holder. A lien holder may be a bank that has a mortgage interest in one of these properties. And they've recorded the mortgage, and now they have a lien on the property. That could be one lien holder. Another one might be that the delinquent owner had an operation at the hospital and failed to pay the hospital bill, and the hospital sued them in court and won a judgment. And then that judgment was filed as a lien against that individual and their property that they own. And that could be a sizable bill, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 or more possibly. And let's say somebody came and patched a hole in the roof or a leaky roof and charged them $800, but somehow was never paid, and took a small claims court, took that delinquent to small claims court, won a judgment, and then filed that notification in the county records. All of these lien holders will be discovered by this title search. And then they're all considered now interested parties. They have an interest in what happens to this property. So they're given a period of time, at 90 days, to step forward and protect their interest. Of course, the delinquent property owner, they have plenty of time to go pay their taxes, keep their property. But we're talking here now about banks and hospitals and New York State income tax and the IRS possibly, and the roofer. They have a period of time to protect their lien. The only way they can protect their lien is by paying the taxes. We don't see that happening. We've been doing this work for 20 years. We're not seeing banks pay taxes unless they're escrowing tax money as part of the mortgage. About 50% of us that have a mortgage use the bank and their servicing companies to escrow taxes and insurance. The other 50% of us with a mortgage said, no, we're going to take care of that on our own. We'll pay you the mortgage, but we're going to pay our own taxes. We'll pay our own insurance. So sometimes banks are notified of the foreclosure, but they're not actually escrowing any tax money, and they're not going to step up and put any more money into the property. They have their own promissory note in the form of that mortgage against the homeowner. So they're not necessarily worried about whether or not they're going to get paid. Their asset may be gone through judgment and foreclosure, but the payment of the note may still be owed. So the hospital's not going to step up and pay a bill. If they're owed $40,000, $50,000 or more, are they going to come and now write a check for taxes? Most likely not. They're probably going to end up writing that debt off as an uncollected debt. The poor roofer that was owed $800, same deal, probably not going to come and pay the taxes. The IRS, they're not going to pay the taxes, absolutely not, but they have a longer lien on the property. And we'll talk about this again later, but they have actually a 10-year life cycle on their lien once they file it. Now, as long as they're notified, it's not a big deal for you, the new buyer. That lien can be released from the property, and we're going to talk about how you go about doing that. So all the lien holders that are notified then are brought in front of a court. The court reviews that process. The county attests that they did the advertising they should have, they did the marketing they should have, they did the legal notices, they did the mailings. All lien holders that were notified then are wiped away from this process as far as you're concerned, being the new buyer. Those liens are no longer in effect as long as they were notified. So we're telling you to make sure that you know that this property that you're looking at, who are the lien holders, if any, and then verify with the county treasurer's office, did you notify them? Because the liens that were not notified, they may still be in effect against the property. So you don't want to become the new buyer and find out that you might be owing that roofer money, or you may have to pay an IRS bill or such beyond that. So again, back to the 90-day notice, they're given that period of time to come and protect their liens. And then if not, this entire process goes before the court, and the court will then create a judgment that grants title to the county, free and clear of all those liens that were notified. The test of the Legal process, and this again has been tested by a variety of people. It's a fancy way of saying that it's presumed that the county followed all the steps correctly and that the final judgment erases all recorded and notified lien holders. As far as you're concerned, as the new buyer, you don't have to worry going forward that the bank or anybody else can come after you for an old mortgage or an old debt. It's not going to be your problem. Again, as long as they were notified. You know, we've sold, well, we brought, you know, well over 40,000 properties across New York State back onto the tax roll. It's a rare day. And I can tell you, we can only count on one and maybe 1.5 fingers, 1.5 hands over 20 years hearing about lien holders that were missed in this process. We deal with some of the same buyers year after year, and they certainly would let us know if that was the case. So in a nutshell, that's the legal process. Article 11, you're able to look up Article 11 and learn more detail if you'd like to do that. Once the county forecloses and takes title, now they have a list of properties that they own. They've been given title. It's at that point, and in Article 11 says, must be sold at public auction. So where can you find property? Where can you find parcels? Well, one of the best places is to go to aarauctions.com or nysauctions.com. You know, we're working currently for just about 25% of the counties in New York State doing their tax foreclosure auction. We've been doing it for 20 years. So we have information on our website that we, you know, post there as soon as we're able to turn the list public. After we've done signs and photos, you can look for them there. You can certainly do some internet searches if you like, Google property tax foreclosure, and you'll come up with a couple of different municipalities that are still doing it themselves. And, you know, you may have some luck working with them. And there are a couple of competitors of ours from New York, around New York State that also do this work too. But certainly visit our website. You know, we have a happy, smiling team, more than happy to work with you. And we just want to let you know that if you do join our site, you know, in other words, join our email list and become a regular member there, it doesn't cost you anything. And at the same time, we promise that we do not rent and we do not sell your email address to anyone for any reason. So it's just to promote the auctions that we do. And AAR Auctions does all types of municipal auctions. We do surplus vehicles, equipment, office equipment, supplies. We do lots of things in addition to private individuals and investors. If you visited our site, you've seen lots of those auctions. The NYS side, that's where we do our property tax foreclosure auction. So we've kind of left that on the side so you could look at that information. In a typical year, 1,500 to 2,000 properties we have at auction for property tax foreclosure. If you get one of our booklets, you can get one of these online. We also print them and send them to every county clerk's office, their treasurer's office. They're widely available in the county seat where the government conducts business. We also do an automatic mailing out to the town clerks and villages so that if you're, you know, much closer to a village or a town hall, you can go in there and ask for a copy. They typically have copies of the books. And you see on the right-hand side, the book typically is showing you, you know, thumbnail images so you can get a rough idea of what the property is about. And we give you just a brief synopsis so that you can start kind of parsing through the list of what you're interested in. We know that if we bring, you know, 40, 60, 100, sometimes 300 and 400 properties to auction, you're not interested in every single one. You know, you're probably looking either at a neighboring piece to yours, or maybe you're looking in a county that you'd like to relocate to, or maybe you're even interested in, you know, somewhere else in your own county or upstate, somewhere else. You know, number one question, do you have cabins on the lake? Yes, we do. Not often, but we do. And that's probably the number one request. So visit our website and take a look at the different properties that we have. So there's so many properties coming up, and there's so many choices that you may find yourself like one of these folks. Either you want to pull your hair out, either maybe you're super confident in what you're doing, or you're just exhausted by the process. We cannot urge you enough to do what we call in the profession your due diligence. That's your buyer homework. Do your homework, understand what it is that you're looking to buy, know about it before you bid, and then once you're a buyer, you'll be very happy with the property that you acquire. It's really not that difficult. There are some steps that you should take, and we're going to help you understand those steps right now. So a few different things. You're going to want to look at what we call the assessor report. This is the tax assessor who visited the property and gives you a bunch of information that goes into a statewide database. And we're going to show you samples of that. You also want to look at the tax maps themselves and understand what the shape of the parcel is and maybe how big it is. There's information to be gleaned from the deed, and we'll show you that. You also want to, again, touch on the liens, including the IRS, and we'll talk about towns and villages and just a bit about the schools. The assessor information. These are what we call assessor reports, or RPS, Real Property System. We're typically gathering this information for you and putting it on our website so that you have an easy way of starting to do a little bit more homework on these properties. When you take a closer look, there's a lot of great information in these reports. Some of them have photos, some don't. But they typically tell you the lot size. They tell you what kind of property it is. Look on the right column there. Start working your way down. It identifies the parcel. It tells you that it's a class code 210. It's a single family. It's residential use. It's in the Port Jervis School District. They're giving you information about the assessed value of just the land itself, and then with the improvement, the total assessment. And those are typically the numbers that are used to determine the taxation on this property. There's also a full market value. This is what the statewide system is saying this property may be valued in today's marketplace. A little further down, you'll notice a deed book and page, and that you're going to want to make note of so that when you go and look for the deed, you know exactly where to go. The deeds, by the way, are in the county clerk's office. All the liens, the judgments, and the land records or deed records are also there. Mortgages are also filed there. There's size of the property, there's size of the structures, if there are any. They'll give you a bunch of good information. You're going to want to spend a good amount of time looking through the assessor's report. There's an awful lot to learn there. We also give you a link to property tax maps. We're typically recreating these maps for you on our website or copying them to our website. But just for yourself, if you're trying to find a property, let's just use an example in the upper left-hand corner. Where is 2112? So this is the map section 2, the block on the map 1, and the individual parcel 12. So when you look at a full sheet tax map in the county records, and these things are, 2.5 feet by 3 feet, you want to look on the lower right side, find the section first. So we're on sheet map section number 2. You want to look on this map and find the circled number. That's the block number. Sometimes there are more than one blocks on a map. This one's easy. It only shows you one block. But now you're going to have to start looking very closely to find 12. Where's that lot number 12? Fortunately, I've zoomed in for you a little bit and highlighted it. And there's more information here to be learned. So I circle lot number 12. At first, when you're looking at these things, it's a little confusing, but you'll get used to it after you look at a number of them. But there's more information for you. There's not only the actual parcel number 12, but there's some extra small numbers typically on the tax map. And in this case, they're showing you what the road frontage is in feet. This is 252.1 feet. So We're approaching 300 feet as a football field. This property has a very sizable amount of road frontage. That may be important to you. It certainly allows you to get to your property easily. There's also another number here. They listed the acreage, 1.2 acres, and they're giving you that information. So there's good information to be gleaned from a tax map. Now, these are approximate shapes. These maps are created a number of different ways, but they're typically now created electronically by the mapper, the GIS mapper in the county, typing the information into a program that automatically creates this information, or they're reading the information off of an actual survey, a land surveyor who went out and measured distances and directions, and there's a recorded survey, possibly in the county record, maybe at your town. So the survey is something much more detailed, shows you maybe where the property has improvements, may show water access, might show utilities. The tax map is just a general overview of the parcel. Here's another really cool feature. I hope that you're taking advantage of this. When you're looking either on our website or you're on the public side of that assessor's report, there's typically a link that you can go to Google Maps, you can go to Apple Maps, or you can go to the county map. I just happen to be in the habit of using Google Map because I'm comfortable with it, and it has a really cool feature that I like. So when you click on the property, Google Map will open separately on your computer, even opens up on your smartphone. And it usually opens up first in this gray view, which is that overview of the tax maps, and it pins the property where it's located. You notice down around 7 o'clock, I've highlighted with an arrow satellite. Click on that, and it changes the view to now the satellite view. Still shows you where the property is, but now it's starting to give you a lot more information. Like this property has, pretty dense vegetation or forestation right around that property. So, you're looking for that home that's in the image there on the left, but you can see that it has a pretty good amount of tree cover around that property. Here's where it gets really fun. When you're looking on the left side, where my arrow says, send to your phone, this is one of the coolest things. You want to click that, put in your text number, your cell phone number, and when you click send, you're going to send yourself automatically a link through Google right to your phone. That once you open that link, voila, you're going to have instant directions from wherever you are, right to that property, right to that pin. So whether you're down in New Jersey or out on the island or upstate or out of state, it'll take you right to that property, turn by turn directions. It's a wonderful thing. It also tells you how long it's going to take you to get there. We like this service through Google, and we definitely make the effort of putting into our system the coordinates so that this works for you. Because, it's easy to find a home. Most homes have a number and a street, and they're easy to find. But for those of you going out to the countryside to look for land, there's usually no mailbox there, and there's no street number. And how do you find it? Unless you have some sophisticated GIS material like we're using in our vehicles, surveyor's wheels and all kinds of things, it's sometimes very difficult to find property. We go out and identify all these properties that have road frontage, and we put a sign there. We're typically putting the sign halfway, meaning the middle point of that property. So if you look at where our sign is and you turn left and you turn right, it's kind of equidistant from both borders of that property. A word of caution, there are people out there that will take and move that sign, and they don't want you to know where the property is. So we've known that people have picked up the sign and put it on the other side of the road or put it down the road, especially on vacant land. That's why using this Google Maps to your own cell phone take you right where you're supposed to go. And it's really a wonderful thing. One day somebody called us up a few years ago and said, hey, you know what? I'm down at the Jersey Shore. I found this one of your signs here in a rental house. You guys selling this? Um, I said, yeah, send us a deposit. We'll see what we can do for you. Just joking there. We didn't do that. But anyway, these signs do move about. So they're accurate at the moment we put them in the ground, but you're going to want to double check. Here's the next thing that you're going to want to do. You're going to want to look at that deed and the books and the page that we were referring to before. The first one is the book. So here are all the deed books, and you're going to want to find, the book that matches the one that you're looking for. And you can do that. In many cases now you can do it online, but if you actually do need to go into the county records room, that's how you find it. From there, you're going to want to find the actual page of the property, and then you're going to want to start looking through that deed and seeing some good information there. The information that you're going to be most important to you is to start identifying that you're in the right town or the right village and the right county here in New York. Somewhere in that deed, you may see a legal description. The legal description being the tax map parcel number, and then part of that description may go on and call what we call Schedule A or Exhibit A. And that is going to be a description of, this is a legal term, meets and bounds. In other words, the border of this property. So why is that important to you? And this one doesn't match the property I just showed you, but it was a good copy to give you an example. This Schedule A is basically an understanding from a survey that this property begins somewhere, it goes in different directions, certain distances, and if you look at the last sentence, back to the point or place of beginning. So it makes a complete border outline of this property through this narrative. And then they summarize it by telling you 44.9 acres, more or less. So this is probably good information for you if you really want to verify the size. You want to make sure that the property you're looking at has certain dimensions. You're also going to want to look in this part of the deed and maybe learn that there are rights of way or easements or access to the property or over another person's property to get to your property. I'm going to cover more of this later on. What is an easement? What's a right of way? Why is that of importance to you? When you're reading deeds, you may come across those terms. A quick Google search will tell you what that is. I'm going to try and go over it briefly later on, but you may want to actually ask an attorney to give you better information. Now, some of you I know are sitting at home and saying, gee, Frank, that's a lot of work. Well, buying property is a lot of work, and you're probably used to buying it, the more traditional way, which is going through a real estate company where, you make your offer, maybe you get an accepted offer, and then you begin to do the homework. At auction, it's 180% opposite of that. You want to do your homework in advance. You want to know everything about this property before you bid. Bidding at the auction means you want to buy it. So, do you do it yourself or do you hire a professional? That's entirely up to you. If you're confident in doing search and information like that, then by all means, have at it. If you feel like you need to hire a professional, you're going to want to find somebody who is either an abstractor, a title searcher. There are companies that advertise in your locality that do that work. If you go into your county clerk's office, you'll typically see people thumbing through all these books and making calls and copies, and they're typically the abstractors, the searchers. You may want to approach one of them and ask them for help. Just understand, help is not free. So bring some money with you and a smile, and they may be willing to help you. You can go to an attorney and ask them to do a title search, but to be honest with you, I think that the attorney is just going to outsource this to a title company. I don't know many attorneys who are actually going to go and do that search themselves. So there's a variety of ways for you to actually go about getting this information. Again, the IRS liens, if you come across a property with an IRS lien, We see them occasionally. We don't see tons of IRS liens, but throughout the year we may see a dozen in the 2,000 properties that we bring to auction. You want to know that the county notified the IRS. If you come up with an IRS lien, you're going to want to take a good close look at it, read it, understand what they're talking about, and specifically what the dates are. When the IRS files their lien, it's for 10 years. It has a life cycle of 10 years. It could be renewed for an additional 10 years, and there are details there. But here's maybe what's really important for you. As long as they were notified, this works for you. The IRS has 180 days from the date of the auction to buy that property from you. Now keep in mind, it's going to be an even money exchange. There's no profit. So they have 180 days from the date of the auction to come to you and say, guess what? We need to buy that property, and you have to sell it to them. So why are we mentioning this to you? The great news about this is if you see an IRS lien, even a pretty sizable one like this one, $792,000 income tax lien. Holy moly. We saw a $1 million lien on a mobile home in a county. It's not a big deal though. The county notified the IRS. Once you become the title owner of this property, you can ask the IRS for an unconditional lien release, and they will give you such a release. The IRS office in New York State that is in charge of this type of work is in Rochester, New York. So, don't deal with them now. They're not going to do anything for you right now. They're not going to tell you much right now. But once you're the actual title owner, you're going to want to reach out to them and tell them you bought a property, you notice there's a federal tax lien there, and you would like to receive their unconditional letter of release. And then whatever time frame that is, you don't have to worry about the 180 days. Keep in mind, all property is local. By that I mean there are some local rules that determine what you can or cannot do with these properties. There are town codes, there may be village codes, there may be taxes, water and sewer districts you need to deal with, and of course schools. So we're not quite done yet. I want to give you a few more details. There is light at the end of the tunnel, but I do want to give you a little bit more. So just hang in there with us, and we're giving you good information. Hopefully Jessica's been able to answer a couple of questions for those of you who can't wait. I see her smiling in the background. So keeping in mind that all real estate is local, you're going to want to start determining value. How do you do that? Well, you're going to want to look at property that is closed sales, meaning, the stuff that's for sale, those are asking prices. They may or may not ever get those prices. You want to look at closed sales. This means that somebody actually paid for the property. And you want to compare apples to apples. Don't mix fruit. You want to make sure that what you're looking at the auction is similar to what you see as a closed transaction. If you're looking at property at the auction, some of them do need some TLC. And you're going to want to maybe get some estimates in advance. And you may want to even consider a paid appraisal or work with a local real estate professional who can help guide you on values. There are a bunch of websites to help you. You can go to realtor.com, Zillow, Trulia, etc. There's bunches of them that have, in addition to for sale, they have sold information. You can also look in the public newspaper for sale. That's typically your Sunday paper that has the real estate section, or maybe some of these things that you find at the convenient mart or supermarket, like Homes and Land or Harmon Homes. They're distributed throughout New York State. I love picking these things up to kind of look at what the for sale asking prices are, and it gives you an idea of what typically might be the asks. But you need to compare property that's similar. So, not to be silly, but these are similar. They're all homes, but clearly they're different. Some are or are not habitable. Yes, they're all residential to some degree or another. They have a roof, 4 sides as best I can tell here in New York, but you need to really start looking at property that's similar to each other. And sales is the best way to go ahead and do that. Now, when you start looking at tax maps, are these the same? Unless you really identify on the tax map that the sizes and dimensions you're looking at are either acreage or fee, you just can't tell from a simple tax map cut. What you see in our booklet and what you see on our website, typically we have tax map cuts because we really want to highlight the shape of the property and where it is. But again, take a look at these. They're all similar looking pictures, but some are feet, some are acres. Look at the difference between the one that's on the left there, 115 feet or so, and the one next to it that's 62 acres. Like, wow, if you just went by shape, you wouldn't really know what you're buying. We really want you to be an informed buyer, so please do some homework. Also, if you're looking at property that may need repair, start getting some estimates in advance. A couple of investors have taught us that a good way to find people to help you do work, especially at a distance, is to go to supply houses. Sure, you could go to the big box store and ask those people at the contractor counter, who's a reliable tradesperson, but you may get better advice by going to the local plumbing store, the local electrical store, the local lumber store, and asking those proprietors, give me the name of a few people who are doing business with you, who are reliable or have a good reputation, and then get some written estimates, ask for insurance certificates. Maybe ask for satisfied references. I just had a roof replaced on my home. I called for references and I did actually talk to people. And I said, what is your experience? And they gave me glowing reports. I asked for a reference recently and I asked for somebody a year ago. How does the work hold up? Make sure you always follow up if you get references. If you ask a professional for advice, make sure that you know that advice is not free, because the free advice is not always best. So if you're going to work with a professional, be it a realtor, a surveyor, you may want to, consider the fact that you're going to have to pay for some of that service. If you talk to a neighbor, definitely want to approach that with some caution, meaning that your neighbor may be interested in the property. We've heard all kinds of different things from people telling potential buyers absolute untruths about the property relative to things that we observed. Like whether it was an oil tank in the property, or did it use gas, or, did it have electric heat or not? I mean, just sometimes people will not really give you the best advice that's a neighbor. Then again, neighbor may give you great advice. They're looking to have a new neighbor move in and put some money into the property. If you see property with caution tape or these stickers on the windows that say violation, understand that you need to ask some hard questions first. You want to understand the zoning. You're going to want to check for building code violations. You want to understand about the water, are there public services, maybe what the schools are like. And there are different things here. So zoning. Zoning talks about how a property can be used. It has to be good for the community. Zoning is local laws that, break properties up into residential, commercial, etc. And they determine what properties can be used for. That's what zoning is about. Now, typically, there's a zoning board of appeals. So, laws can be modified or suspended or appealed. If you find out that you need 5 acres to build a house and you bought a property at auction that's 4.99 acres, you may want to go to appeals board and say, can you cut me a little slack here? I'm just a hair short. And they, may be willing to work with you on that. Building codes, on the other hand, talk about the design, the construction, alteration, maintenance of structures. Codes deal with structures. There's a national code, the federal HUD code. Then a little more restrictive is the New York State Building Code. And then even more restrictive is your local building code. So, meaning that there are standards that the local municipality may enforce that's different than the entire state or the entire United States. I'll give you a quick example. Snow load. Do you think that a house in Florida has to have the same type of snow low design that they do up in uh, Lowville, New York? You know, snowmobile country gets 120 inches of snow a year. So that may be different. And different codes apply to different parts. So you're going to want to understand the local building code. The best way to learn, go to local building code office, talk to the code enforcement officer, understand, are there any violations on this property I'm looking at? What about that deck in the back? What about that stairway? They know these properties intimately and can give you information. And eventually you're going to have to deal with them as you do your improvements or alterations. I have a trivia question for you. What state do you think has the strictest building code? Raise your hand. I see Jessica raising her hand. She may know. The strictest code, New York. Yep, a whole bunch of people saying New York. Well, guess what? It's not. It's actually Florida. Florida has the strictest building code because of their multiple instances of hurricane. So that's typically where it goes. You want to look into public services or private services. You know, is there municipal water to this property? Municipal sewer, gas, electric? You know, what do I have to deal with on the municipal side versus is this a private well? If it is, how many gallons per minute do I get? Is the water safe to drink? There's all kinds of information available if you dig hard enough, you look far enough, and you find out about the property in advance of bidding. New York schools too. I don't have a lot of information for you here, but there's something in New York called the school report card. If you just go to the New York State Ed Department, nysed.gov, or Google school report card, New York, you'll get to a website that's going to give you more information maybe than you even want. You could dig into the local pass rate. You can understand how many kids are graduating, going to college, etc. There's a ton of information on schools, and really that's your responsibility to look into that if that's of importance to you. So get your questions answered before you bid. Placing a bid means that you do want to buy property. So as we're heading closer to the auction, start counting your finances now. You're going to want to make sure that you have a down payment at the auction. When I say at the auction, this auction's online. So this means entirely credit card or debit card. You're going to want to start getting that ready now, and I'll get into that in a little bit. After the auction, all of the auctions are always 30 days or less to finish paying or to close. It means that you're going to then take title. There are no contingencies. There are no financing options. There's no auction inspection times, and there are no excuses. If you're the high bidder at the auction, understand this will become your property once you finish paying for it and a deed is recorded. So you need to be in a position that whatever you bid, in addition to your down payment on auction day, you're able to go ahead and finish paying. Now, we do accept credit and debit cards. Discover, Visa, MasterCard. Call them before the auction. In fact, some of you maybe should even call them tonight. You know, go through the phone tree and wait to get to a human and say, listen, I'm going to be buying real estate at an auction in October, and I need my credit card, debit card to work. So let them make a note in the electronic file that says they're aware of the charge possibly happening on October 15th, October 17th, the date of the auction. You want to make sure that you're prepared and they're prepared to let your charge go through. Make sure that they have it in your file. Now, for down payment, we have a really cool tool on our website this year. We have a brilliant office who came up with a calculator, helps you determine down payments. And I'm going to show you how that works in just a minute. Let's talk about bidding strategy for a minute. Are you the kind of person that's very calculating and careful? Do you just throw darts at the wall? Are you a risk taker? Or do you have to know all the answers ahead of time? I mean, that's really up to you. But one thing we can tell you from seeing thousands and thousands of you at the auction is you just need to be ready to bid in order to buy. Some of you are going to wonder, well, how do we do that? No, here's an example for you. Picture for a second that I'm selling you a crisp new $100 bill. Would you give me $80 for it? First of all, who wants to give me 100? I know nobody. But would you give me 80? Would you give me $50 for it? Now, some of you might be tempted, but I can already tell that a bunch of people are waiting for it to go lower. How low can you go? Do you expect it to get down to $1? If I have a $100 bill that I'm selling to you and it gets down to $1, everyone's going to want it. What we're trying to explain to you is, don't wait for the bidding to get so low that everybody wants it, that even people who weren't remotely interested say, heck, at that price, I'm in, I'll buy. If you wait to bid, you always pay more. Why? You have to outbid the person who just bid. Why not you be the first bidder? Why not be a strong bidder? We also see people trying to delay their bid. They're thinking, they're scratching their head, they're looking around. Delaying doesn't work. In fact, it can work to your detriment. We've seen auctions, and we quite honestly, we smile. We see auctions where one bidder is trying to delay, only to aggravate the other bidder, who ends up having more money and just keeps bidding. So bidding delays don't work. You just waste time. What works at the auction? Money, strength wins. Consider even jumping the bid. If we're going in hundreds of dollars, maybe you go in $200s. And if we're going in thousands, maybe you go in 1500s or more. Make sure that you know what your final price is you want to pay, and then attempt to get there pretty quickly. If other people stop bidding along the way, then you've actually saved money by being in early. Now, I know that this advice typically is going to fall on deaf ears. Everyone has a little larceny in their heart and wants to wait to let it go as low as you can go. Well, don't say, Frank, later on, I know I paid more than I probably had to. I wish I listened to you, because I'm just going to smile and wish you well. Some properties in the auctions are sold choice. We're just quickly going to touch on this. Choice is to the highest bidder. If you're the highest bidder, you get to pick. Now, why do we do this? Well, first of all, sometimes you may want to assemble a purchase of properties that touch each other. We call it a fruit salad. Do you want to buy one or two pieces of fruit, maybe all three? I'll give you what this looks like in real time. Here's choice to the high bidder. We have two parcels. In this case, these were both vacant land. They're exactly the same size, well, within 8 inches. And they're next to each other. So our experience has been, some people want number 3, some people want number 2, but they come at the wrong order. So the county typically says, hey, you know what, when you guys get property that's very similar, just offer them both at the same time and let the high bidder choose what they want. The high bidder earns the right to pick. And then they can pick whichever one they want times their bid, or if they say, I want both of them, then it's 2 times the bid. It's pretty simple. We do this occasionally when property is very similar and really the marketplace is going to determine what do you want. Other times, counties tell us to combine property and sell it all together as one. In this case, we had a property that had a little bit of road frontage. It really didn't have a driveway. And then these properties in the back were unreachable. And the county said, you know what? Let's just sell them both all together, all 3 pieces together. Somebody else could use to make the driveway. Somebody could maybe develop those 2 lots in the back. But we just wanted to sell them combined. So the buyer paid one price and got 3 pieces. We do this on occasion too, and it's very clear when we do. Final thoughts on bidding strategy. Again, bid early, get involved early, know where you want to go, and then don't be afraid to jump the bid if you want. This young lady here is extremely happy at the auction, and we want you to be a happy buyer too. Isn't that wonderful? Everybody would like to have one of these. The reality is, you may not have road frontage. So to get there, you need a boat, a helicopter, or a parachute, or you know how to swim really well. We bring this up because some property may not actually have road frontage. So how do you get there? I want to give you an example. So if you look on the map on the left, this looks kind of like a regular subdivision with roads and lots and all kinds of good stuff. And then I zoomed in on it for you. All right, this property is right on the corner. People love corner property. It's on the corner of Ivy and Arbutus Road. Well, it's not. When we jumped up in our hot air balloon to take this picture, you can see that this is just forest. This subdivision doesn't exist yet. On paper, it's been subdivided. The lots have been created, but in reality, it's not there yet. So you may be buying a property that actually has no road frontage. What does that mean? How do I get there? Well, you're going to want to go and look for road frontage and read the deed. Learn in the deed whether this property has road frontage. If it doesn't specifically talk about being on the road, you're going to want to look for what we call the ROW, the deeded right of way. The right of way allows you to actually make access using somebody else's property to get to yours, right? So typically putting in maybe a gravel driveway or access way to that property. And the deed typically specifies how wide that is and where it is on somebody else's property. You're going to want to read that in the deed. The other access you might get is an easement. Well, you're not building anything, but you're able to go over somebody's property, right? Lakefront sometimes has an easement. You're able to use that neighbor's yard to get down to the lake. They allow you either a footpath or something else to get down there. So deeded rights of way, easements, that's in a nutshell what they're about. If you really want a fuller legal explanation, I'm going to send you to an attorney and ask them to do that for you. So let's get you ready to go at the auction. This auction entirely online, you need to be registered, right? First, you need to become a member of our site, get a username, get a password. Only you know the password, so, put in whatever you'd like. And then once you become a member, then you're going to go and complete the internet bidding packet. You're going to complete that digitally. You're going to do an e-signature on all the documentation. We're going to send you a link to do that in your email. So you'll be able to register completely online. You don't have to go anywhere. You can do this from home. Make sure before you start that full registration through the internet bid packet, you're going to want to make sure that you have your proof identification of who you are. It's typically a driver's license, but we will accept passport, a military or state ID, something that has your positive proof identification. Really, the best two devices is that driver's license and your passport. You're also going to recognize electronically the agricultural district form, the lead paint form, the New York State agency form. And if you're registering as an incorporated entity, meaning an LLC or an INC, you're going to have to do a new disclosure form. Let's take a closer look. In New York State wants you to know that you're dealing with a representative of either the seller or the buyer. We are always an exclusive seller's agent. So our agency form says we're a seller's agent, and you will acknowledge that you know that we work for the seller. The lead paint form is going to come with electronic booklet, or when we have auctions in person, you'll get the booklet. But this form tells you a few things. One, the seller, the county in this case, the municipality has no knowledge about lead paint because they've done no testing. No testing means then, for number two, there's no report. There's no record to share with you. In letter D, you're going to acknowledge that you got the booklet. You're also going to acknowledge that you waived your 10-day right to do your lead-based paint test. Now, what kind of properties does this apply to? Any residential dwelling built 1 to 4 families prior to 1978 has to have a lead paint disclosure. We just use them on every property, even though we have newer property in the auction. And you'll acknowledge that by e-signature. We also have an ag district form. Some properties look, smell, and smell like ag property. And if you want to clear your sinuses, head on the road with me sometime upstate, where they still have great, strong dairy going on. Makes you feel good to be alive, out and outside. Well, that's true, but some of you don't like that smell. You don't like that noise or dust, or you may be, interested in what's being sprayed. You're going to sign a form that says you did your homework and know whether or not property you're buying is actually in an agricultural district. There's a new form this year, the Fair Housing Notice form. It's an anti-discrimination form. Everybody's going to sign it, acknowledge it electronically, that you've been made aware of it, and the disclosure itself. If you are an LLC, you're going to need to show proof that you exist. And there's a couple of things that you're going to need. Let's take a closer look. Every LLC starts its life somewhere. So in every state, you have what's called a filing receipt. That filing receipt will be given to you either by your attorney, if they did your incorporation, or those of you that did like LegalZoom or another service, you received it as part of that service. It looks like this. You're going to need to get an electronic copy. I have a great app on my phone for scanning documents, turns them into PDFs. So basically you're taking a picture of a document, turns it into a PDF, and you're going to be able to submit it as part of your internet packet. There's also a new form and a new law in New York State that says every LLC buying property has to really disclose 100% who are the owners in the LLC. So if it's simple, like you're a single person LLC, well, that's you. You fill it in, you indicate you're 100%, and you're good to go. If you have partners or other people, you're going to have to show everybody's names, everybody's social security numbers, and the percentages that they own. It has to equal 100%. The IRS is going to give your entity an employment identification number, or EIN. Again, this is something that you can file on your own. You can do it with the service. We will need a copy of that information as well. For those of you attempting to bid on behalf of others, you're going to need a limited power of attorney form. This is now a more expanded form in New York, and we've been using this one now for a couple of years. The good news is we have a free copy on our website. Just download it. This will need to be notarized, and you're going to have to deal with that and then provide us with that information in these forms. So if you need one, we have one right there for you to use. So when you go to the auction, we don't want you to feel like this guy. You're at the wrong end of it. We want you to feel that you can compete with everyone. The best part about auction is that there are terms of the auction, and the terms of auction makes all buyer offers equal. The only difference, what is the dollar amount? So every municipality creates terms and conditions. Otsego County created their rules, their terms for selling property to you. It's your responsibility to read them and understand them fully. If you don't understand them, please don't bid. There are no excuses later that I just didn't quite understand this. The educated buyers are best customer, and we want you to become educated. And that's why we're doing this webinar. And that's why we have a lot of resources on our website for you to help you learn and understand what it is you're doing. I want to highlight a couple of things. Everyone at the auction has to prove positively who they are, right? That driver's license, that passport that we talked about. You can also use the eDocs registration to do these internet terms. And that's how we're going to do this auction, entirely online. Otsego says we used Article 11 to get these properties, and all known rights of redemption are now extinguished. So all those lien holders who had a right and the former owner now, it's all over. Once these make it to auction day and you tender a bid and you make a down payment and finish paying and the property is closed in your name, it's yours. The way the law actually reads is those delinquents and the former owners and all the lien holders are, I believe it's in quotes, forever barred from stepping forth to protect their lien. Read the details, understand it. Number 4 talks about village taxes, and it could also talk about school taxes after October 15th. So you're not worried about earlier village and school tax. It's all the new taxes that are going to be on this property subsequent, meaning after the auction. Again, caution number 5 about an ag district, just understand what it is you're buying. And all buyers are saying once they sign the terms that they've inspected not only the title, right? You've done your due diligence, but you've also visited the property, maybe walked around on it, maybe took a closer look at it. We try and provide you with a lot of good information, but we also disclaim that there may be an error in the information. Why? It's not like we don't make a mistake. Occasionally we do. But there's also sometimes a mistake in the public record. And it's your responsibility to go and find that and verify that. Maybe the lot size isn't exactly what it says. We were at a property recently that, said that there was no house there. There was a house there. The assessment information didn't quite match. So people looking to buy that property are going to want to verify that. Number 9 this year, it's important and it's highlighted in red and it'll appear again. Because of COVID-19, all bidders are advised that the properties are sold subject to the rights of tenants or persons otherwise occupying the property, if any. The responsibility to evict is going to be responsibility of the bidder. However, those evictions are going to be subject to New York State law regarding any executive orders of the governor and the administrative orders of the New York State court system. So what does that mean? I'm not sure, I'm not a lawyer. Sounds like you need to do a bit more homework if you're buying a property that's occupied. If it's occupied, you may not be able to evict them immediately. They may have gain certain rights through COVID-19 as a result of executive order or administrative order. So here's where you may want to enlist an attorney to help you understand what this really means. Again, personally inspect these properties and understand what it is that you're going to be bidding on. 11 is a repeat of the LLC, EIN. We don't need to repeat that again. We just went over it. 13, deposits have to be made at the auction. So we're getting from you a debit or a credit card during your registration process. Understand that as soon as you're the high bidder, we're going to be processing that credit or debit transaction. So it's important that you have your credit lined up and ready to go, or your debit account ready to go to conduct business. Number 16, the bidder is executing terms and conditions, and you cannot assign your right to complete the bid unless the county agrees to it. We haven't seen any counties agree to it. But in other words, there's no flipping property because you're the high bidder at the auction and now you're going to sell it to somebody else and they're going to have to figure out how to finish paying. Unless the county agrees to that, I've only seen it here in this county that language is even suggested. You're not going to be able to do that. At the auction, the auctioneer's decision regarding any disputes is final. And what decision will that be? Well, this is going to be a totally automatic auction. This is an online auction, totally on the computer. So there really won't be any disputes there. If you're the high bidder, once the time runs out, you're the high bidder. That's how it's going to be. Now, the approval of each bid is going to be by the county treasurer. Here in Otsego County, the county treasurer has the right to accept or reject bids. Now, you might be, well, wait a minute, Frank, I thought you guys were selling these properties. We are. We are selling them. However, the county treasurer and all the treasurers throughout New York State that we work with, they're going to look at the buyers at the auction, and the number one thing they're looking for, this is what they're really looking to approve you for. They want to make sure you're not a delinquent taxpayer in their county. They don't want to sell property to people who are not paying taxes. They want to sell them more land so they don't pay more tax on that. So that's the typical reason why bids are rejected. If you are currently owing Otsego County taxes, please straighten that out before attempting to bid at the auction. Number 19, the successful bidder will pay the buyer's premium. The buyer's premium is the commission earned on each transaction. So it's an 11% buyer's premium. We have a calculator that kind of helps compute that for you. In addition to the buyer's premium, you also pay an advertising fee of 1.5% of your bid price. And that allows the county, not the auction company, but the county to recoup the money they spent in marketing costs. The deposit here, we have a down payment calculator on our website. Again, this thing is super cool and it really works. When we first turned this on, I was playing around with it and just smiling the whole time. The language in the term says that the deposit must be the greater of either $500 or 25% of what we call the total contract price. The contract price is your high bid amount plus the buyer's premium. Put them together and take 25% of that. And whatever that is, that greater amount of 500 or that percentage needs to be made as a down payment. Now, again, use the calculator on the website. It's super cool. It'll help you figure this out, and I'll give you an example in just a minute. Also in paragraph 21, there are some additional closing fees, some by the county, some by New York State. You want to read through them and understand what they may be. Okay, if you're using a credit or debit card, in number 22, you will not attempt a chargeback. What does that mean? It means you're not going to change your mind and call the company, the credit card company, and say, hey, by the way, I don't want to do this. If you do, there's going to be some repercussions for you, including some fees tacked on. So people have attempted to do this. They've never been successful. So just take that as a caution in advance. Don't bid, don't buy if you have no intention of paying. All bids, again, have to be approved. The treasurer's sole discretion to reject any bid for any reason whatsoever. We never understand why they reject a bid, other than sometimes we know that a delinquent taxpayer tried to buy other property. The entire balance is due after this auction concludes by noon, November 16, 2020. And this will be embedded into the contract. You must finish paying by noon, November 16, 2020. If you fail to pay, you're going to lose your down payment. You may fail to get the property. You may be actually sued by the county for specific performance. That time of the essence, that's a legal phrase, meaning the clock is ticking. From the day of the auction to noon on November 16, 2020, the clock is ticking. You must perform. There's no selective closings. In other words, if you are the high bidder on 2, 3, 5 properties, you can't decide later on that, I really don't want all of those. I just want 2 out of 5. You can't do that. You either are going to pay for all or get nothing and lose your down payments. If you're a high bidder and somehow you slip through the cracks here and you're the high bidder and you are a delinquent taxpayer, you must pay all your delinquent taxes in full prior to closing. Again, there are repercussions for being on the wrong side of that. So call the treasurer's office if you're in doubt and understand what you need to do. If for some reason in 29 the sale is canceled by court order or judgment, and there are any refunds that need to be made, number one, the refunds come from Otsego County Treasurer. They get and take all the money. We have no money at the auction hall, and our auction company keeps no money. It all goes to the treasurer, and if for some reason there is a refund coming, it will come from that office. All sales will be final without recourse once title has closed and the deed has been recorded. In New York State, the law says that once the deed is recorded, in this case, it's going to be a quit claim deed. Once it's recorded, title vests upon the recording of the deed. That means that it's officially yours. It's yours at that point. So what does that also mean? That means if you're the high bidder on auction day, even if you somehow manage to pay entirely in full, it's still not yours. Please do not go and trespass on that property. Do not begin any repairs or maintenance or collecting of rent or anything until the deed has been recorded. You will get a copy of the deed in the mail. It's a quit claim deed. That's the simplest form of title transfer. Again, number 33, they reiterate the same information about possible evictions or not. They just reinforce it again here. And then the final lot there is where you're going to say that once you agree to the terms, everybody is going to be agreeing to abide by them. And they also tell you that please don't participate in trying to buy property for the former owner and then kind of doing something with them within 3 years, like selling it back to them or giving it back to them. That's a fraudulent act, and there may be some legal repercussions. So please don't get involved in that. Remember that the IRS has that 180 days from the date of the auction. I think we've established that pretty well. And when you finally get to the auction and you're going to be on our bidding applet, this is for a personal property auction. Real estate auction will only show you 3 lots at a time. These are going to start in numerical sequence. The bidding will be occurring on a particular lot, and then when the bidding ceases, it'll close out, go on to the next lot. And you'll see down on the bottom how much time is remaining for subsequent lots. So, it doesn't move at the speed of light. However, the clock is ticking, and be prepared to bid. Be prepared to push your enter button and make sure you know that you want to buy that property. Once you're the high bidder, you're going to make a down payment, and you'll be sent the sample contract of sale, actually the correct contract of sale for execution. Remember that you're going to use that Visa debit card. You're going to want to call them and get that set up for yourself. Here's that calculator I mentioned a couple of times. You can go anywhere on our website, and you can find this near the properties that you're looking at. We have them in a resource area. You're going to want to click the location of where you're looking at property. This is going to be an Otsego example. Type in the bid amount, $50,000. We hope you do that for every lot. Click calculate, and it'll tell you your down payment. It just automatically tells you that greater of, that 25% of the contract, or 500. In this case, to bid $50,000, you're going to have to put down $13,875 on your credit or debit card. So make sure you have that funds available. Make sure it's ready to work. Can you put down a greater amount? No, you can put down that amount with a debit or credit card. And that's how it's going to work. Well, Frank, I'm not paying $50,000 for everything. I'm going to pay $200 for a property. Okay, good for you. We'll wish you luck. And what does that mean? That means that you bid $200, and it calculates, and it tells you your down payment can be up to $500. Well, why is that? Because that's the rules of the game. The minimum is 25% or 500, whichever is greater. So the greater amount is 500. That means you're going to pay your full bid amount. You'll pay your full buyer's premium amount, and you're probably going to start paying into the closing costs of the property. And that may or may not be $500. We're not sure, but make sure that you are ready to pay at least $500 if you have to. Now, if you end up with a very low dollar value property and you end up, owing $390 total, well, then you're just going to pay in total and wait for your deed in the mail. It's pretty simple. The contract page is just one page, simple. You could zoom in a little bit, take a look at all the information at the bottom. It's all calculated for you. When you get your copy to execute, it will show you everything that transpired dollars-wise. It also will tell you that the last date of closing is time of the essence. You'll also be acknowledging some other forms: New York State transfer tax, transfer report. You're going to have to execute these forms also for filing. And we have automated all of that, so we've made it nice and simple for you. And then the quick claim deed comes in the mail. Again, it's the simplest form of title transfer. Here's an example. It's usually one page. It has your name on it, county name on it. This one happens to be from Sullivan County. Theirs is a little bit more detailed with the kind of property and the size of it. You may not see that on another property, another county. I don't recall off the top of my head what Otsego has, but it'll identify what you purchased. But it's a one-page quick claim deed. Very simple. If you have questions, you may want to follow the advice of an attorney or a tax professional. And do whatever they recommend. So the auction is going to be starting soon. Get yourselves ready. Now, of course, nobody's fully prepared here to bid online because you're not activated for anything, but we're going to bring a property up to auction and kind of give you an idea of, if we were all together in the public space, what this property is like if it's sold online. This one we're going to bring forward is lot 307 today in the town of Thompson. This is Sullivan County. It's Gold Point Road, and it looks to be a seasonal residence. And this is that waterfront property that everybody wants to know. This is on Wanna-Sink Lake. It's an older home, built 1951 or so, about 864 square feet, just shy of a quarter acre. And we'll take you in for a closer look. In this property, we did get to show during the times where everybody was able to visit. I think we sold this a couple of years ago. We had, I bet you, 160 people go through this property. Again, property on the lake is always interesting. But we take pictures of the outside. We kind of like to see what it's about. Now we're doing interior photos and interior video, so you get a good idea of what those properties are like. You're welcome to inspect property from the outside on your own, as long as it's not occupied. Drive by, take a look. You're not going indoors. You're just going to take a look from the outside, but we have some good photos and give you a representative sample of what it is. Here's some photos that I actually took right through the window the day we did signs and photos. So it does give you a good sample of what this is about. And the mother-in-law cabin comes with it. Has no heat, no air conditioning. She won't stay long, so don't worry about that. All right, what do you want to give on them here? Look at that view. It'll give me about $500,000 and enjoy that view every day. How about a 500? Would you give 5? Would you give me 200,000? How about a $200,000 on them? How about a 200? How about a 200,000? Would you get 2? Would you get 200? And here it is. It's a nice looking cabin. Would you get 2? How about a $100,000 bid? 100,000. I see 50,000. Thank you. Now 50,000. Would you get 60? 50 to bid and 60,000. I get 60,000 now. 70. 50 to bid would be 70. Would be 70,000. And now I have 80,000. 70 to 80 would be 80,000. Would be 80,000. 100,000. Thank you, sir. Jump in the bid. Would it give me 110? I got 100 bid and 110. Would a 110 now 120? Would a 120,000? How about a $120,000 bid? How about a 120? Now 130. Would it 130,000? Would it 140? 140,000 bid over here on the right side, and you're on the left. Would it go 140,000? Would it 150? And $150,000 bid. Would it go 150? 140 to bid over 150. Would it go 50? Now 60. $160,000 on. How about it go 160,000? And 155. I'll take that. Now 160. 155 to the bid over 160. Would it go 165? 165 and now 170,000. 165 and 70,000 or 170. You should round it out. It's the only one we have on the lake. 170,000. I'll take 167 and a half. 167.5 and now 170,000. 174 and 172.5. 172.5. You owned it for a minute. 172.5. I got 170 bid and 172.5. Now 175,000. Round it out. 175,000 and show them who's boss. What do you $175,000 on it? 175. Can you do it? $175,000. Hurry, hurry. Thank you. And now 177 and a half. 177 and a half. This property actually went down the road at 175,000 plus the buyer's premium. 192.5 in the public record. Ladies and gentlemen, when we do the live auction, and we can't wait to do that again with you in person, it takes about 2 to 3 minutes to sell a property. Online, I don't think it takes much less or much more than that. So know where you want to be, know where you want to bid, and make sure that you're good to go. So again, just a reminder, the auction's on Thursday, October 15th. Bidding will begin ending right after 10 a.m. We'll start closing lots down, and you'll have opportunity to bid. But the bidding will open, those of you who are ready, in advance, Monday, October 12th at 10 a.m. You can reach out to us on all these different social media sites, and we'll be happy to connect with you there. There's lots of great extra photos, sometimes travel photos and things like that. YouTube. Please join our sites, like us, follow us, and enjoy the real estate that we bring forward. At this point, I'm going to look up to Jessica and see if she has any questions that are still out there that it looks like I didn't quite cover. You see anything there? I know Jess has done a good job of answering your questions for you. Again, there are tremendous resources on our website. Kind of sounds like she did a good job and answered all the questions as we went. Great resources for you. The best place to start doing homework is to, start on the town. visit with that town building inspector, code enforcement officer. Make sure you look at our website, check the list of property removals. You know, there's a significant list here in Otsego County that's on our website. You know, all of the, you know, one thing I didn't quite mention is, yeah, we're out there doing signs and photos, but, you know, the municipalities are typically allowing people to still pay their tax bill, to keep their property. You know, people want to keep their property. We're all in support of that. But, you know, it's our yellow sign that sometimes makes people finally go and pay the tax bill. So before you do a ton of homework, check our website. Now is the time to start checking it every day to see if the property that you're interested remains in the auction. Anything else? I know we have good resources for you. You should take advantage of them. I think with a couple of weeks here ahead of the auction, it gives you a lot of good information on how to do your homework, how to be a buyer. Let me see if I can just pop open the chat myself and maybe answer a couple of these things. If you bid 5,000, will the auction start there? It will start there for you, absolutely. Real estate, the offer you tender in real estate is required to be tendered in full. So if you put in 5,000, that's where your bid is going to go. There's not a provision like eBay where you put in 5,000 and then it starts less. You know, that's a personal property auction. There are different rules and so governing that. Here in New York State, offers that are tendered do need to be executed in full. Do the bids go up by $100? The bids do go up $100. However, when we get into more valuable property, the bid increments will become bigger. You know, for example, right now, just to turn the website on and just to get the auction started, we have $100 bids because the bidding platform requires a dollar amount to get started. But let's face it, property that's going to sell for $112,000, you know, $100 at a time, we're going to be here an awful long time. So there's an opportunity there to have bigger bid increments. You'll see that on the website. What else? Anything I missed or didn't cover? I think, like I said, I know from doing these things many times, we pretty much anticipate your questions. So I have a feeling we covered just about everything that people may want to know. Again, ton of great information on our website. If you want to reach out, you know, do so through social media, reach out through a question to the office if need be, but almost everything that you need to know, we've already been asked, and we figured out ways to give you that information ahead of time, so you don't have to wait for us to be in the office or get back to you with an answer. That being said, Jess, I think Jennifer's on the screen, but Jessica's behind the screen. Jess, are we about done with our questions and answers? I get the high sign from her. It looks like it is. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to wish you good luck in the auction. Thank you for being here tonight with us and spending your evening learning about Article 11, property tax foreclosure, and specifically Otsego County. It's a beautiful county, great place to own real estate, and we wish you all the success with your purchases and continued good health to everyone. Take care. Hey, Mom, if you're still here, I'll give you a call. My mom was with us tonight. I love it.